Please the Bees is the 7th episode of the brand new first season of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse Plus. This is directed by Jeff Gordon, and as always, there will be spoilers as I recap what happens in the episode and share some thoughts. And in general, it's a good episode. There aren't as many opportunities for learning in this one. The previous episodes have had a lot of direct learning, such as counting and colours. That's not so much the case here, and I am slightly concerned that children might try and get a little bit too up close and personal with some bees after watching this, and I'll talk more about that as we go through the episode. It starts off with the gang deciding to have a picnic, and they go outside. Donald's flying his kite. The kite interrupts some bees, and I think first of all we have a great lesson there. If you're going to fly a kite, make sure you're not next to a beehive because it's probably going to annoy the bees. This is a bit of an oversight, but at the same time I can understand why they wouldn't want the bees to come off as antagonists, because they never really show that the bees could be dangerous. They never show that if you upset bees, they might sting you. I'm by no means an expert, but I'm fairly sure it's the case that if bees feel like they're under attack, they might sting to protect themselves, to defend themselves. So if Donald is getting in the way and causing problems, he might have been stung, and they didn't go down that route. But I feel like, and this is purely a guess, they didn't want to make them proper antagonists because they want to show love for nature. They want the bees to come across as characters we want to love and protect and look after, whereas if they're nasty, aggressive, stinging bees, nobody wants to love that creature. So I understand the decision, if that's why they made the decision, but at the same time, it's not really showing that bees can potentially be dangerous if you interfere with them. But I guess by showing them angry, it does show that it's still not a good idea to mess with the bees. And they don't quite know why the bees are angry, so they spend the episode using the mouse Toodles to try and please the bees. And they water some flowers, and we have a fun song with some simple dance moves that many viewers will be able to copy along, and we have some physical activity there with some simple movements. Goofy then plays a song on a kazoo, and then we have the mouse capal, which is Beekeeper Clarabelle, who can communicate with the bees, and I rather like this version of Clarabelle. I thought the character was pretty cool. And we learn that the bees are, of course, upset because Donald upset the hive. And we have some arts and crafts, which I wasn't expecting, because the last mouse tool, we've had the watering can, the kazoo, the mouse capal Clarabelle, and then the last one are some paper lanterns. And I thought they were just going to open the lanterns, hang them on the tree, and the bees could use them as their hives. Granted, it doesn't quite work like that, but that's what I thought was going to happen. But actually, and I thought this was great, they took it a step further and turned it into an arts and crafts project. And I think that that's great because, yes, children shouldn't be interfering with bees. They should, and this is where I was slightly concerned that they would then think, oh, I'm going to make a hive for the bees, and then I'm going to go over to the bees in my garden and give them the hive. Now, I imagine the bees wouldn't sting in that situation if you're just walking over paper lantern, but I don't know. So part of me thought that that was a bit of a risk to encourage viewers to make their own beehives, but part of me also thought that's a really great way to get children or any viewers thinking about nature, about different habitats and different environments and what the purpose of the hive is. And then they made their own out of the lanterns and rope, and it turned into a Mickey Mouse head, which I thought was a really nice touch. So on the one hand, as long as the parent or caregiver with the child or viewer of any age makes it very clear that you shouldn't go and disturb the bees, I think the creative project is a great idea. It's a great way to get people creative and making things. I absolutely would have done that as a child, and thinking about nature and the purpose of the hive and what it means to the bees. So pros, cons, that basically also sums up the entire episode. There are a lot of really great aspects to this, but at the same time, I think it's a bit of an oversight to not make it clear that you should not interfere with bees. But again, I understand, or I could understand if it's their argument, why they wouldn't make the bees antagonists and aggressive, because it's harder, I guess, to care about something in nature if it seems like a threat to you. So I could understand that decision, but it still doesn't make it the safest episode. But again, children, viewers of any age, need to get their education, not just from television, but other sources as well. So this can just supplement somebody's education about bees and bee safety, rather than being the sole source of bee education. But other than that, it has a lot to offer. We have some kind of good opportunities for learning, not as much as previous episodes, but just the whole learning about bees in general works well. We have some simple dance moves with some of the songs, and we have a bit of a celebration of nature as well. And at the very end, they get their picnic, the bees bring them some fresh honey, everybody's happy. So, in general, while it's not the strongest episode, it still has a lot to offer. The music is great, the animation's gorgeous. Ultimately, Please the Bees is a pretty decent episode of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse Plus.